Hello, this is Tariq Elwan presenting lecture number 10, the last lecture for the SBM 4104 BIS 2001. What we have covered so far, we covered the OSI layer from physical to applications. We went over the most important protocols, functions, services for each layer. Then we went over the network design, and today we will discuss the most important and the most concerned point at this time, the network security or the security in general. Why we are concerning about security? Some experts estimate the data loss or the loss from hacking the data or breaching security up to $2 trillion a year. 2 trillion. So if we assume that there may be exaggeration in that number, let's put 1.5, 1.2, $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. Not just only for money, for security, for privacy, for future use, industrial espionage, armed espionage, company competition between companies, corporate as well. It become real issue, the security matter. Today we will discuss what is the main choices for us and affordable choices as well to secure network and or IS or IT in general. We have mentioned before the concept of securing physical security. The physical security involved in fences, doors, access, control, ID, locks, pins, cameras, many things. Today, at the end of this lecture, we will cover how to control the security for individuals, users as well, which is involved in authentication. What kind of authentication you use? Is that centralized authentication? What kind of authentication you're going to use? You're going to use the normal authentication, username and password, or multi-factors, or BIOS, or eyes, or many. So we will cover that at the end of this lecture. So how we secure our data? That's the main concern for us today. We start with securing the network in general. And to secure the network in general as a LAN, we want to separate between private and public, private IP and public IP. Inside the network, inside the LAN, that's my LAN. So that has to be secure from the outside. To do that, we usually create what we call a DMZ, the zone, the demilitarized zone. We create something in the middle and we put a lot of security between two firewalls. And then we put in the middle whatever the services or the servers we want to keep it visible and usable to the outside world. For inside LAN, only user inside can access inside the LAN. How we do that? We have what we call NAT, Network Address Translation. What is the main concept of that? And we will go over the encryption, which is the most important task for today. Let's move to the main screen. So if we start there with basic understanding about the NAT, what's the NAT exactly? Let me give you, we are here inside our LAN. This is the LAN. And whatever inside buildings, inside LAN, no problem. We connect to each other through either layer 2 or layer 3 switch, no problem. We can do that. However, we want to communicate outside. If we want to communicate outside, I need a router. Usually, we create what we call a DMZ area, like that. And we usually filter this one with the firewall. And over here as well with another firewall. And here our main router, which usually connect to the ISP. That's how it is. That's mostly how is that. Why we use that? Over here, as you understand, that's public IP. And that's routable, and everybody can reach everybody through the IP address. Here, private IPs. In the middle here, we put what we call it NATs. What is NAT exactly? Mapping or translating between private to public IPs and from public to private, 2 ways around. So you translate between, I'm sitting here as a PC and my IP here 192.168.10.10. I'm sending, I want to communicate outside to Google, for example, which is 8.8.8.8. I want to communicate outside to reach Google. As soon as I reach here, my IPs, which is this one, millions of people, they use the same IP around the world since it's private IP, free IP. So the NAT has to do something, which is take your IP off, changing to the public IP, which is your IP, public IP, which is provided by the ISP, and then after that, send it to Google. When Google goes and reply back, the same concept backward happen. The IP come over here, change it from public to private, and send it back to you. Can we have an example of that? Yes. Look at the screen over here, and here it is. For example, what we want to do over here, I want to send a data. That's, for example, this is the source, 192.168.44 and 122. I want to send a data outside here. If I have here a NAT here, the NAT will take the source and change the pub to public. And if I have destination, the destination is still as it is. So how that maybe works like that? Very basic. Here it is. This is the source. The client over here want to reach 1 133.192.44.45 IP outside. And that's in port 80, which is HTTP. Okay, so I want to send the data from here to outside. Yes, no problem. My IP here, my computer IP, 192.168.100. Yes, and the destination will go to that IP. This is the port number which I'm sending from. This is the port number I'm going to send it to, which is going to go to the web. However, when I send it to the firewall or the NAT proxy, the firewall or NAT proxy, we send it over there. What exactly the NAT proxy will do? Watch that. It will take the source as a PC, which is 128.160, whatever it is, and it will replace that with its own number, IP addresses. For example, this is 192.168.100. This is the source. This is your PC IP. What's the firewall or the NAT proxy IP? 128.192.44.50. That's become the source. So take you as a source, send it to outside, and then when it comes back, translate it back again from its own source to your source. Okay, so it's like two ways around. Yep. So change it over here, then send it to the DNS. The DNS will send it outside. So when it comes back from outside, so right now, the packet has been changed to 128.168, whatever it is, it's changing from 192 to 128. So when it comes back to the DNS will send it to the firewall proxy. How the firewall or the NAT proxy will know that this packet has to go to the client 192.168.100 because of what we have is a NAT table. The NAT table keep inside the NAT, that table, which PC or which device has sent a data to whom on which port. So for example, you send me a data on 4550. I kept it here in the NAT and I sent it. When it come back to here, now the data going back into, for example, the 128.192.44.50, who send the data to 133.192.44.45. Look at inside the table, find that that's the PC 192.168.100. He sent me the data over 455 ports, send it back over there in the same port. That's how it is. That's mostly how it is, which works in a very basic fundamental concept. You send the data, you send me a data, I'll take you at the source, and I'll put myself as a NAT proxy as the source and record who sent that packet, send it outside, and when the receiver tried to reach me back, when that receiver reply back to me, and I will receive its own packets, I'm gonna look at it. Yes, that receiver reply back to my inquiry, and I will look at the NAT table. Inside the NAT table, I'll take who sent that to which IP, look at that, match it with the port, and send it back to that client in the same port he sent it back to me. That's mostly how it works, yes. What does that provide usually? As you can see over here, it provides some kind of hidden, you hide your IP. So first, the outside world doesn't know who is the client 192.168.100. Nobody knows you. No, nobody knows you. everybody knows your gateway only. And your gateway, as soon as they arrive, it sends it to the firewall proxy or the NAT proxy. And the NAT proxy usually send it back to you. That's how it works? Yes. So what does that mean? Multi-level of hiding your data. Is that a good technique to follow? It is. That's a good technique to follow. Is that has disadvantage? Yes. As you can see here, changing between source to destination, source, who actually taken public to private, private to public, then send it to the DNS send it back out, stuff like that. It actually creates some kind of delay. So it's actually degrade the performance of the network. But it's still at the same time, it's provide good level of security. Okay, so this is the NAT. Yes, that's the concept, the main concept of the NAT. Mapping between private to public, public to private. What else we have? We have firewall which filter, work as a filtration. So we have a few types of firewalls. We just put the firewalls over here, for example, and that firewall will start filtering packets, or let's say scanning all the packets in and out, and mostly in. So how that works? We have three types of firewalls. The most important one, the one we concern about, or the packet filtration and the application filtration. Sure, we have NAT proxy as I explained to you, the NAT proxy. But at the same time, we do have a filter but it's like a firewall which based only to filter packets based on the source and destination. So the main goal of that packet will look at the source and the destination. Okay, so what is the concept of that? We have access list. Who allows, what type of IP addresses are allowed to reach me or get in and out? Really? Yes. So for example, this is the firewall. This is the packet filtration firewall. And over here, I put access list. The access list, this is the very basic fundamental, what we call standard access list. The permit, TCP, anyone, to where to 128, 192, 44, 40, 80. So anyone can from outside to access that, yes. That only, yes. On port 80, yes. So, and permit as well, 128, 192 to 25, mail, yes. So what is that? What's the permission over here in that access list? I have a web server in my company, and I have mail server in my company, and I want to permit anyone outside to can access that with authentication, sure, not just access that, but the packet itself can be allowed to pass through the firewall. All right, so you allow anyone, yep, to reach the web server in port 80, yes. You allow anyone to reach the mail server in port 25, yes. So what about if someone tried to access that in port 23? It's not. It's gonna be blocked. So if you want to access that mail server, you have to access that on that IP address with that port number. Filter the source and destination based on the packets, the the source and destination, including the port number for sure. Is that a good way of filtration? Yes, that's a good way of filtration. That's actually keep some people from accessing the data and try to hack through open ports in your system. Do we have another packet or filtration or firewall? Yes, we have another firewall, which is firewall but based on applications. It monitor and scan and filter the applications, and that's more complex. Usually this one is really more complex to follow. Let me just okay, that's from me. That's usually hard, complex to be configured and to follow as well. It's much more complex. You follow and you try to scan applications, and those applications usually not just in terms of how it's run. No, we have something called anomaly, or you can say normal or abnormal if you want to take it in a very easy concept. If that we want to see that if that application behave normally, behave in normal, so the number of inquiries, the number of packets, the number of it's behave normal or not. Also, we have some kind of technique which is the behave. If, for example, if we receive multi requests very quick from one source, that's a problem. If someone from one source try to log in many times within few seconds, that's a problem as well. In short, to make it really simple to you to understand, this is that type of firewall usually designed to monitor and scan the behavior of application, and that's much more complex than just look at the packet. The first one was just only look at the packet, source, destination, port, access list, that's it. But this one much more complex. The third one, which is the one we mentioned, the NAT proxy, which is the one involved with NATing. If you want to implement NAT proxy, usually we have two different type of users, in and out, and we prefer to have two different type of DNS you can talk to, and we keep those in the DMZ. If you have something like that, for example, if you look at something like the DNS over here, the example I gave you, you send the data over here, the NAT proxy will change the source and keep the destination as it is, then send it to the DNS. The DNS will send it outside and will come back to you as well. The same thing with if you want the internal network to send in the data to outside. How we secure our data? What is the best option to secure our data? The best option to secure our data, encryption. What is the basic fundamental concept of encryption? Very basic. You write any statement you want to, whatever the statement you want to encrypt. For example, you want to type the word attack and you want to send it encrypted. What is that exactly? You need to have a key. Key means word, technique, whatever you want to use. Then you scramble that word with that key, and it's gonna give you what similar to what code hashing. What is that? So you have something, for example, let me, for example, if you can see that this is Bob, you're sending a message which called stop trying to make whatever Alice. When you encrypt it, it looks like this. As you can see here, it's being encrypted to, let's say, unreadable, understandable text. Then when it goes to the other side, it can be read by the same key. This is like plain text. So plain text, then cipher, then plain text again. So how that being done? One of the science which call or standard cryptography. What is that exactly? This is like really a huge science right now, cryptography. Do you want to encrypt data or decrypt data? Yes, we have different type of keys to encrypt data. Believe it or not, this is one of those keys. Look like that. That's the key? Yes. You sure that's a key? Yes, it is a key. That's what is that? What we can read over here. It is a key. So it's like algorithm which was being allocated to one of the companies, and that's the public key, which we will learn in a few minutes. That's how it look like. Yes. Then I scramble my data with that. Yes. For example, the word attack, I put it inside that. Yep. I scramble that within that. Yep. Then what? Send it. Yeah. And the other side, they can reverse that back and read the message. Yes. One of the early technique of cryptography was Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, when was leading the army, once sent a message across the world and wanted that to be encrypted. So one of the earliest and very basic fundamental techniques they have done at that time was the shifting or plus, what we call it, +2, +3. What is that? Shifting 2, shifting 3, shift only. So for example, if that shifting 2, what is that will be? So this is A. So when you shift to 2, what is that be? Gonna be B, C. Okay, so now if you want to shift that T, that's V and V. That's A, C again. C, shift, it become E. That's M. So the message you will send this one, the word attack, if you shift it for 2, you're gonna send it like this. As you can see here, if someone see that message will not understand what that is, unless if you understand this is shifting 2. When it arrived at the other side, they decrypt it back with the same key back again, so they can see the word attack. Recently, since the First World War, the encryption and decryption, the cryptography, it become highly complicated and it take another turn. You need an encryption algorithm, that's true. You need a key, whatever the key you want to do, and that will give you a cipher text out when you scramble the text with the key. It's going to give you a cipher text. The encryption techniques, usually as the example I give you over here, we follow 2 types of techniques, either symmetric or asymmetric. What the difference? Symmetric encryption, both sides, sender and receiver, they use the same key. Asymmetric, sender, they use, and receiver, they are using 2 different keys. That's how it works? Yes. So the most common sense for most people to understand, if me and you, we have the same key, that's really understandable. So you send a message with the key, I decrypt it with the same key. But how the asymmetric, which is different keys, works, we'll discuss that. But at the beginning, let's go over the most usable symmetric keys we use, or what we call single keys. Let's go over here and let's cover the symmetric key. Since we are using a symmetric key, one key only, the one key can be being guessed, let's say, can be released by using another technique of, we call it brute force technique. What is the brute force technique in general, or in very basic fundamental concept? We're trying all possibilities. So all the combination. So for example, you have a key with 10 letters and numbers. Good. We start trying to all the combination of that letters and numbers. That's brute force? Yes, that's mostly it is. That's why the longer the key, the harder it gets. The longer the key, the harder you can find. How we do that? Let's go for just some example, very basic example about that. One of the techniques, which is an old technique called this DS, the data encryption standard. That was based on 56 bits version. 56 bits version, by the way, it's easy to be figured out. Or if you attack it with brute force, you can get it back. You can find out the key. So since that they found out this is it's short 56 bits only. So let's make it harder, because a lot of people, they right now with the new computer, the supercomputer, the new technology, and software and multi-software coming to the market, which help even not expertise, even average user to try those kind of attacks and the brute force as well. So what to do exactly? Make the key harder. So what they do exactly? They treat these. They multiply that in 3. So instead of 56, they make it 3 times 56. And what they do exactly? They came back to some of that technique. Instead of 56 and 168, for example, with the same key is not. What they have done exactly, 56 with one key, another the second 56 with the second key, another 56 with the third key. That's become really complex and really not easy to figure it out. Another technique, which is we call AES, and that's actually in the market and really famous as well. If you check your router at home, for example, right now, mostly you will find that AES was something. It use not just only 256 as the slide it mentioned. We have 512 and 1024 as well. 1024 bits, that's a long key, not easy to figure it out. Some of the concepts, some people, they say that if you use the 2048 AES key, you need millions of years with the very top fast computer today to find out that key. However, I do not believe in that much. So the more advanced we get, the faster you can decrypt keys. But it give you an idea how hard to decrypt the AES. the regulation. Okay, I'm going to review the regulation part to read. The asymmetric encryption, that's based on the concept of the sender will have two keys, one private, one public. The private is only belong to the company and secret, nobody knows it except the company. And there is a public key, those ones public. It's a key, yes, but published to the other company, the other corporate. If you want to contact me, from anywhere in the world, use that key to contact me. However, when that message arrives at me, I'm gonna decrypt that with my private IP. Private key. So I have two different keys. One key, which public. Anyone want to talk to me, do not talk to me in a plain text. That's how it is. Do not send me any data with plain text. So what to do exactly? Use that key to contact me or to encrypt the data to me. When a company will send me the data, when I receive it, I will decrypt it with my private key. And sure, there is a link between the private and the public key. One of the main one we use until now, which is a really famous one, the PKI. And we have multi-version, 512, 1024, and 22048. Those ones, in most cases, usually based on that. Here's the plain text. You encrypt using the public key, and you send it, transmit it over there. When it arrives to the B decrypt it using private key. So here's the sender. You send me with the public key, my public. And when I receive that, I'm gonna decrypt that with my private key. That's how it is. That's mostly how it is. That's provide security. Yes, it is. So I have two different type of key. The companies. How the companies they get these keys and how they make sure that this is like genuine and whatever, we will cover that in a few minutes. The authentication, how to authenticate people or to authenticate devices, by the way, which we haven't mentioned here, but authentication in terms of devices as well. The authentication, I want to provide proof of identity. Sure, we have user authentication. I understand that, which we use it, which is between username and password, the keys, the BIOS, the eyes, whatever it is. But we have how I know that company, whatever that company send me the data, is a genuine company. Is not a fake that fake corporate or fake company or whatever it is. Most companies, they use what they call digital signature. What is that digital signature? Some kind of a certificate which is highly encrypted, which has content and information about you, about the company or the person, because some people, they ask for things like that, but type of security, type of signature. So how that works exactly, if you want to understand. The digital signature like this. This is organization A. They have plain text of the message. They encrypt it using the A, which is the company here, private key. Private, yes, not public, no. Okay, then before they do that, they authenticate that they authenticate it. How they authenticate it? With the digital signature. They encrypt it using public key, and then they encrypted authentication message to B, and from the B, it's arrived at the receiver side. When it arrives at the receiver side will authenticate this message, decrypt it using the B private key. B private key, yes. So it's not A private key, no, B private key. Then we'll authenticate the message to B, decrypt it with the A public key, and the plain text will be chosen. So it makes it between private key and public key, the private A and public A. Yes, that's how usually it works. Each company can generate or allocate a digital signature, but it has to be genuine and recognized around the world. Can we use another corporate or well-known corporate to verify that I'm genuine? Yes, we do. There is corporate companies around the world. The job for that to provide digital signature, to provide authentication, to provide genuinity for you to the world. We will discuss that as well. The PKI, one of the asymmetric key, that's you can say that is not just only a key. It's like combination. It's like a set of software, hardware combination. And that one, the job for the PKI to provide some kind of level of encryption, certificate authority, some kind of fingerprinting. So when you use the PKI, it gives to the other people guaranteed that you are as a person or you are as a company are genuine and you are certified, not a fake. Through what? How the PKI work? Through what we call certificate authority. What is that third certificate authority? A third-party company or corporate, they provide the identity of individual or corporate. For example, I want as an individual to have a certificate authority over my email. So when I send the email, I need some kind of authentication, certification at my email. So the other, when I send that email to anywhere around the world, they know who I am and they know that this email is genuine and non-fake or spam. Who can provide that? Company, corporates. That's their own job to provide you with some kind, yes, I know that person. How would that happen? You apply, and to get a certificate, you need to provide full details about yourself or about your company. If you were talking about company, you need to provide documentation, whatever it is. If you are talking about yourself, they ask you for many things about birth certificate, whatever, until they guarantee that you actually are a genuine. And then after that, they issue a certificate authority. Usually, you combine that certificate authority with your email or email server, and every time you send an email, for example, that certificate already combined with your email tell the people as soon as they see it that this one is genuine, non-spam or whatever it is. How to get the certificate authority? One of the companies, which is VeriSign, that's one of those well-known company. If you want to have yourself certificate authority, or you have a small business or mid-sized business, whatever it is, or big corporate, and you want to get unique certificate, that's you apply for that, and they create you one of those big keys, and it's unique one. You will not have two keys similar in the world. We have one of the, I don't remember his name actually, but he create a free key, which called PGP, or Pretty Good Privacy. Pretty Good Privacy is like a free package, firmware. It provides you with the public key if you want to use it, but that's free software. That's free approach. So it's some kind of freeware, free software. So you can use it. It generates for you that public key, free public key. And if you want to send or receive message, especially in sending. So if you want to send a public key for your own individuals, that's free if you want to use. Pretty good. The SSL, I believe that this is a well-known and wide-used approach, the SSL. When you are using, for example, if you type just only like this, as soon as you try to log in, for example, if you try to log in, just log in, that will change right away, and it will see over here. Most corporate or companies, what they do exactly, they use the SSL for many reasons away from your study for now. However, the SSL, that kind of technique, usually, by the way, the SSL work in presentation layer, within the application layer, sub-layer, presentation layer, and between the application to the transport layer. So how that works in general? It works usually in the, you have a client and you have a server. That server, that client has a browser. The browser will generate a key. The browser itself, yes. The browser will generate a key, yes. And will send it to the server to identify itself. So, and that at that time, the server either to allow you or not allow you to access. That's the very basic fundamental technique in terms of SSL. Then after that, it starts the encryption. The data between the server to the client, it starts to encrypt, fully encrypt. Sure, we have two different types of the term fully encrypt. Sometimes we encrypt only the payload, the data only. Sometimes they encrypt the whole, including the headers. Do we need to actually require to encrypt the headers? Some companies for security, they prefer that. Encrypt everything inside the packet, not just the data, the payload it's carrying. And that's the SSL, one of the preferred techniques. It's light. It doesn't require anything else. I mean, actual special software to be installed or whatever on your computer to do that. Just only between the client and the server, the client browser and the server. The IPsec, which is another protocol, and that's really widely used. And it's not just used for applications. The good thing with IPsec, I just want to explain that to you over here. The one we really, why we prefer to have IPsec. You see guys like this. This is the sender and this is the receiver. That's the sender, that's the receiver. What happened exactly with the IPsec? Sure, the IPsec we use it for encryption, either tunneling or non-tunneling or whatever. But the main focus, the main idea of the IPsec involved in The sender will generate a key. The receiver will generate a key for each connection, by the way. Another key. So this is key 1, this is key 2. From those 2 keys, they will generate the main key they will use. And this is the key it's gonna be used for the encryption. Really, for each connection. So is that really secure? Yes, it is. One of the, to be considered, one of the top security protocol being used currently. So each connection, you, the sender and receiver, generate different keys. So you give me key, I'll give another key, and we generate a third key. This is the key we're gonna use for encryption. That's the one we will use for encryption. That's good technique. Yes, it is a good technique. And sure, the keys are random generation. So nobody expect what they will do. How to do the, up to here, we covered the symmetric and asymmetric. That's very basic fundamentals only about symmetric and asymmetric. If you want to study more in algorithm and how it works, be more than happy. But for now, for what you need in this unit, only the basic fundamentals about these techniques, how it works. How to authenticate user, I believe most of you are familiar with that. However, the really famous one, the username and password. Maybe you have seen people, they carry with them access card in the banks and whatever it is. Some of those techniques, access card and username and password as well. So username, and you have to put the card inside the keyboard. You may see that in the bank all the time. They have to put the key, the card, in the within the keyboard, and after that they put the username and password. So it's like you can see like three types of authentication. We have the bio, we have the eyes as well right now. People like with the high level, they can with your eyes, with the top level security. That's you need to go over there, the biometric. People with the face recognition, many things. And sure, you have the multi-factor, which is really famous these days. The multi-factor means you try to log in, they allocate you a new SMS number, whatever it is, they send it to you through the mail or through the email or through the phone or through application generator. So you need to put that. That's how it is. That's how it is. Multi-type of user authentication. One of the security issue as well, what we call user profile. Each user, when we create, for example, we create your profile. What profile exactly? What you can do, what you can't. Authentication, authorization. Each profile. For example, you are a student, you have different profile from lecturers like us. So we have a different profile from the top management. The top management have different profile from the accounting people or the HR or whatever it is. Each one has some privilege, which what you can do, what you cannot. You have different security policy. You have different password policy and so on. We call that profile. So different user, they have different profile. The one-time password, the card-based form of access, you can access in, as you understand right now, you can access what we have availability. We try to make everything available anywhere, everywhere, anytime. That's our goal. However, in some top-level security areas, you have to be physically on the site to be able to access some data. In high-level security matters, you need to be physically inside the site to be on those devices, in their own devices, to be able to access the data. If you try to use any other terminals or PCs or devices, they will not allow you to do that. For what? For security reasons. You create account. If you study Windows, any server for Windows 2012, 2016, or 2019 right now, you may understand what we're talking about, the user and the user profile and the security and the limitation we created for each user. How to access or how to authenticate users, by the way, we prefer to have what we call centralized authentication. In servers like Windows Server, for example, we have what we call Active Directory domain controller. Then within that domain controller, we have Active Directory. Active Directory has the database for all the user we have created. So when you try to log in, we match that with what we created for you. If yes, yes, no, no. Now we have advanced servers, very professional servers. We call it Radius or AAA. We have those ones. The Active Directory, the AD, that's from Windows. Radius, that's a special server you have to build and configure, and that's much more advanced, by the way, the Radius, and the AAA as well, much more advanced than the Active Directory. But the Active Directory is Windows-based only. One of the real famous protocol, which I believe we mentioned that before in terms of networking, the Kerberos. The Kerberos, those the watchdog, the multi-head watchdog, the Greeks myth, which is the dogs which is stay outside the temple to secure what's inside the temple, the gods. They took that name for one of those protocol as a security to give you idea about that this is very secure, so they name it Kerberos. So what is that exactly? That's the most common used protocol for authentication these days. That's, however, we have many, but that's the most used. What is social engineering to provide exactly? I believe this, you guys, especially here in Sydney, you may realize that for the last couple of years, I believe, and some of my students actually have getting that. And some people, they call you, for example, over the phone, and they tell you that you have a warrant on whatever, and people, they got scared, and you provide all your data. We have approved your loan, and we need your data. Anyway, they trick you somehow over the phone or over the email, but for the last 2 years, the tricks mostly was over the phone. You provide your data, your details freely and everything, and when you provide your data and everything, they some of them, they actually went to your bank account and they cleared it out. So how to prevent social engineering in general? Make awareness to the people. This is mostly important. That's why you see the company or training. If you are in a company, usually the companies, they train their own employees and they provide them every day with emails or every other day, weekly, for example, about the new things that's happening. Be careful, like this. So that's one of the training you provide. We usually screening everything. When you work in company, everything is screened. As an individual, you are being screened when they hire you, wherever it is. When you work, you actually monitored. If you work in a network, whatever you do on the network is highly monitored. Whatever you work. In most cases, let's say not everywhere, but in most cases, which companies has sensitive data and they want to look after, we have network management monitoring system. It being monitored, everything has been monitored. The usage, everything, the resources and everything. Even we monitor the applications, RAMs, CPUs, whatever it is. So if, for example, if you're not doing your work and you're playing games on your computer, whatever, we can figure it out if you actually doing your work or not. Detecting unauthorized access, and this is, we have two things, which is IDS, IPS. They haven't mentioned anything about the IDS over here, but to understand what is IDS, IPS, it's a small device, look like the modem, small device, but the IDS both look alike, by the way, from physically look alike, but the function over there different. The IDS, or the intrusion detection systems, detect only but not preventing. So after something happened, for example, someone breach your system, it detected that and they give you a message to the IT professionals. So the IT professional, they can take care of that. That one we don't prefer much, but some company they prefer that because it's faster. It's didn't affect the system much. The IPS, which is a prevention, that's programmed already with multi things to detect and prevent. So it can take action itself against any breach. So how that work? Well, you can put network-based one, and this one usually has multi-sensors, and it scan all the packets and scan everything, and it has big, huge database of signature, virus and worms and whatever signatures. So if every packet passed by, it's scanned, and if it match one of those signatures, the virus signature inside, it blocked it or dropped it, and many things like that. The host base monitor all activities, everything. That's this one, monitor all the activities. The application based, it just monitor applications. So the network, it usually monitor circuits, packets. It's actually designed for packets. The host monitor all the activities, incoming traffic, out traffic, whatever it is. The application based, it's actually based for the application, and that's usually as well much more advanced. What, how the, I'm not sure exactly if you guys have studied that before or not. For the antivirus, for example, the antivirus, okay, what is the virus exactly? What is the computer virus? The computer virus is like a code, just code. So some of this code, by the way, one line only. So that code, the job for that code to make the computer work in an abnormal way. The same thing like the human body. The virus in the human body, when it attack the body, to make some of it or all of it work in non-normal way. So the computer designed to work in some certain way like that. The computer virus, the job for that, to go inside and make some parts or all parts of the device to behave in non-normal way or abnormal way. How would that work? During executing some certain commands to make that device not working correctly. The people who actually designing programs and designing chips and whatever, they know how this works, and they build the code against that, or to make it not to work or whatever. So how the antivirus works? The antivirus collect, this is the antivirus database. For example, this is the database. Every day or every week, whatever it is, we receive new viruses. We looking for what the code inside that virus does. And we take that piece of code and we put it here. And the other virus piece of code and we put it here. And so on and so on. So we collect a huge database of virus signature, called virus signature, which is the piece of code. What does that virus will do? When you have a packet, the antivirus, this is the packet arrived to your device. What's the job for the antivirus? Take that packet and try to match it with all of these. If that signature, do I have this signature? Do that packet has any of this signature? No, leave it in. If that packet has any of these signature, yes, block it. That's how it is. That's how it is in most cases. So the old viruses we're not worried about. We usually worry about the new viruses, which is not in that database. That's why you see every few days you have antivirus updates automatically by the new signatures, the virus signatures. Is that the type of just only to match signature? No, as I told you before, we have advanced ones, the antivirus, which can monitor the behavior of the network. The behavior. Anything not normal, that type of IPS start involve and start stopping traffic and everything. With the AI, now currently, the AI take a real advantage over the IPS and we start using the AI to analyze the behavior of network and involve. That's actually make it much better and much faster as well. The behavior of the network. How to use the IPS? Usually we put those ones in the DMS zone. The DMS zone, usually you can say that it's on the border of your LAN, something between you and the ISP. We put those ones, and we prefer to put any web or email server or services or anything to the public between two of those IPS. So you filter before and you filter after. Up to here, I believe that this is the mostly what we need to cover today. The intrusion recovery, how to recover from the intrusions. We have multi things to do, not just only for those ones, which is for example, like to put a fake server. Some people do that, some not. To put a fake access point, the same thing. Maybe not. That's not actual professional approach to put a fake server. The most important for us that because like the hackers, usually the professional hackers, they know which one is fake, which one is not in very short time, by the way. However, it's something to read as well. How to recover from intrusion. The one I usually, or the one we usually advise our students to do so. When you have any virus in your computer, whatever it is, the first thing, isolate, quarantine, then troubleshoot. You have to isolate. The first thing to do when you have a virus in your computer, if it affects part of the computer, isolate that. If it affects part of your network, isolate that part of the network. Because if you didn't isolate that part of the network, it will jump into the rest of the network and it will go over. So you need to identify, isolate, quarantine, which is you freeze it somewhere, prevent it from spreading around, and then after treat it. Whatever the way you want to treat it is by finding where it is, where they are, like this way, or clean it up totally. It's whatever it is. And also you need to have a backup for everything. Backup plan. Backup plan means if that network part didn't work, how it's work, how long it's gonna take. Resilient. Resilient means how long it's gonna take until that network will You can read about that a lot in that, but that's mostly what we need to cover for today. Study hard, prepare, and if you have any questions, get back to me. I'll be more than happy to help. Have a good day and have a good one.